Good evening. Everyone just today got it good and got it good all the time. My name is Irma J. Around. I'm going to give you a little short news and a word on tonight. We're going to start with some of it's, both of them is update. George Aileen Canner. George Aileen Canner was appointed by former Trump, to take over the Miss Hannah classified document, case. Now, Miss Cannon refused to step down from Trump case. And we don't know why, because she's not resolving any issues. She's slow walking the case. She's set back hearings, holding trials, and delay. So, Judge Cannon, well, she had to make some kind of movement before November this year. She had to move this case in some kind of way before November. Because when you get to November here, everything's gonna be thrown out. So we need to have this case moved in some kind of way before November of this year, 2024. Now you is too familiar with this case. We see the favoritism that towards former Trump president. So I request that George Aileen Cannon step down from Trump case. You have to step down. There's no movement, just slow walking the case. And before you know it, November is here and you have not got nothing done with this case. We need a judge who willing, to take on this case and move it forward. Because you're not moving it forward. Before you know it, November gonna be here. So we need you to step down and allow another judge to take over where he can move this case. So community claim. Now former President Trump have 34 counts charged, when he was in the White House for Miss Hannah document. He's saying he pleading not guilty. The classified document was in his possession, but he pleaded not guilty. He should not. It should not be covered under her immunity claim. Because the document was discovered in his presence. So he have to take responsibility for the action when he was in the White House, when he left the White House. The next president will try to do the same thing. Try to have the same behavior that he have. If we constantly keep letting him get off on everything that he done and not taking responsibility. So and get off on her immunity claim. So if they giving him her immunity claim, then all the hard work Jack Smith been doing, it will go down the waste. It will go down the drain because he will be covered. All presidents that's in the White House all have to follow rules. All have to follow rules. Document not supposed to leave the building and be in no one's possession. We have a democracy policy to commit to. All have to follow rules. I decline former president from filing for her immunity claim. I decline her immunity claim. He had to take responsibility. He said he didn't put the document there, but the document is in his possession. He had to take responsibility for that and not get covered under her immunity claim. Okay, so I do have a word for you on tonight. Paul Hardship. Paul went through a lot, and he's not a disciple. He apostle that God had chose him. God transformed him. to the person that he is now. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 3 through 13. Now we put, rather as a servant of God, we admit ourselves in every way in great endurance, in trouble, hardship, and distress. So we serve God, but we also go through hardship, trouble, distress. But we still have to serve God and commit to our duties. We still have a house to run. Some of us still have to work, but we have to put everything under, in our schedule to get it done. So in our hardship and distress, in endurance with confidence and kindness. See, we still have to have confidence, kindness. No matter what we go through, we still have to be nice. Admit ourselves to God for everything. Everything that go on, we have to admit ourselves to God. And beating, imprisonment, and riding, and hard work, sleepless nights, and hunger. This is all what Paul had went through. This is Paul went through. Now being put in jail. Remember, he was in jail multiple times. Being put in jail, will cause many people to become bitter. But he ain't bitter. He not angry. He not none of these things. I get frustrated sometimes, but I don't have bitterness in my heart. Because I'm going through the same thing Paul went through, the hardship. So he's saying when you go through the hardship, we still have to not have a bitter heart. We still have to be kind. We still have to be kind and loving. And not bitter, and to give up, not to give up. But Paul saw jail time as one more opportunity to spread the gospel. Remember when I put out a couple of weeks ago, when God did let him out, God told him to go back and finish preaching. They put him in jail because he was preaching about Jesus. So when angel took him out, God said, go back over there. So he said there was an opportunity to spread the gospel of Christ. So Paul was in prison. He took prosecution and he demonstrated his faith even on his worst days. That he never had stopped, preaching the gospel, that he allowed his hardship to build up his faith, and he grows stronger, and that's the same way I am. They wonder how she keep having this strength, but the more the hardship that I'm in, the more God give me strength, and the more my faith is getting stronger. If you have, because God, it set me an example as a woman have faith. Not just on a reading, I'm actually having faith. Is making my faith grow stronger. And that's what Paul said. The more hardship he was in, the more his faith was growing. It kept him never wanting to give up, and that's how I am. Don't want to give up. I want to keep on striving until I get to where God needs me to be at. And that's how Paul is. So in his understanding, patience, kindness, and the Holy Spirit, and a sincere love. Paul still have all these things. And he been to jail multiple times, beaten and everything. Paul went through a whole lot, and he wasn't even a disciple. So Paul's ministry is showing, despite attacks and accusation, they had patience and kindness, love, preaching the gospel with respect. I had to learn and get to this place here with Paul at. I used to go through so much and just walk down the street mad. But now God cho- God checked my heart often. He said my heart is still pure no matter what I'm going through. I still don't have bitter in my heart towards the Lord. I still don't walk down the street mad. I speak to everyone, you know. And so he's saying the aggregation, the tax, the beating, he still, show kindness and love, respect to people and everything. You know, Paul went through it all. In a truthful speech and in the power of God, with a weapon, righteousness in the right hand and in the left hand. Now, this sounds like a spiritual battle. So Paul describing a difficult life, a devoted warranty, for Christ, you know, um, in the ways in which he and his ministry associate, have been operating in grace. You have to operate in grace. Paul saying with the attacks and the accusation, he does more than just suffer for Christ's sake. So that's what he said. He doing a whole lot, for the kingdom besides suffering. He have all these churches. He got people working in these churches, and he is still being kind to people, you know, and he said he doing a whole lot. He not only just suffering, he taking care of the people in a nice attitude way. Now also he describing that this a spiritual battle, you know. He's dressing with the armor of God, so through the glory and dishonor, the bad report, the good report, generally yet regardless, as a false apostle. So he's saying, even though the bad day, my good day, what's the difference knowing that Jesus cares, for us, no matter what the world thinks. Because, Paul started out being a bad boy. He wanted to harm the Israelite. And God stopped him right there. He had Jesus stopping right there in that road with that light to knock him out. Because God saw. See, God sees something in people that nobody else sees. Because God saw I could use him. I could use him to preach about my son, about salvation. Everything that Jesus, it needs to be taught about Jesus. He said I could use Paul to do that. So Paul stood strong, regardless of who didn't like him, or remain faithful to God, rather people praise him or slander his name. Because they still didn't accept Paul. Because, God chose him. He's not a disciple. God chose him and make him the man, transform him to make him the man that he are now. He preached that word. He went to training for a long time before he started. He got some idea. He got some training from the disciples, because they walk with Jesus. They know everything about Jesus. He got training on Jesus, and he preaching that word, and they still not accepting him. So know yet, regardless, as an unknown dying, and yet we live on beaten and yet not killed. Now he's saying that he going through so much, preaching that word. He get beaten. His name gets slandered. He get thrown in jail, but he's still not yet killed. Because God not ready to take him out yet. God is the only one that said your life is over with, that it's done. Long as God have you working, God gonna say that's it. All the beating and prosecution, everything that Paul went through, he said, yet I'm not dead. I'm not killed. So as we are on our journey, we always close to death. I'm a witness. All the prophets, look, Elijah ran from it. Every time I preach that word, Elijah said, they wants to kill me. I'm tired of it. He ran. But God said, no, it wasn't his time yet. So God said, I need you. I have another project for you. So I need you to go back over there. So he had to go back to the next door neighbor who wanted to kill him because God wasn't ready for him yet. And so, because we always, when we serving God not ready for us yet. We always gonna be close to death because we are prophet, working under God. Look what the devil did, Joe. I know that's your righteous person. I know you got a shield around him. See, the devil know. The devil know. And all the trials and beating, we survive. That's what Paul's saying. All the beating and all the trials that he went through, he survived. With the grace of God. All that we go through, the attacks, name meaning in attacks, the name, slander his name, but God saving him, it won't be done a long time ago, a long time, so he's saying all that he went through, the beating and everything, God still had him here. Because as long as he's still working for God and God did not say it's it, he's saying he got through it because God saved him. Sorrowful, yet always, he's saying when he said and he's sorrowful, he's still rejoicing. He said he poor, but yet making riches, having nothing, but yet processing, possessing everything. So this is what Paul saying. He want us to be like that, but it's hard, for a lot of times they be telling me smile. So Paul's saying when he's sorrowful, he's still rejoicing. He said when he poor and he out, he's still making a way. He's still rich, and he said having nothing, but he's still possessing everything, because God give him what he want on his journey, So that's why he said when he's sad, he's still rejoicing. When he poor, he's still making riches because God still provide for him. No matter, no matter, what he said, no matter what he saw, he rejoiced, lack, but he still made things happen. Nothing, but still possessed everything. Israel and them had nothing. They came out of Egypt. They had nothing, but God gave them everything. Everything came from their ancestors. So that's what they're saying. Israel never had nothing. They wasn't entitled to nothing. God gave them that land because he promised to Abraham. And so they had to want for nothing. God took care of them, on their journey until they got to the promised land. And so we have spoken freely, to you, the Corinthians, and open wide, our heart to you. Now he's saying he spoke freely to them, to the Corinthians. Open up his heart. He told them everything about him. But they didn't respond back to it. They didn't show the same love that he gave to them. Now Paul spoke freely, with them, being direct and not holding, the truth in any kind of way. Now here, we usually friendly, Tom. He happened, helping them to see this letter as a personal and wide open. Now Paul reflects his love for the Corinthians, but they didn't show. Now sometimes Paul said he was being nice to them, and he showing, because she did not accept him as an apostle. They're not accepting him that God chose him. So Paul, feel the tension, you know, even though you feel the tension, we still have to serve God. We still have to do what we have to do. So that's why he said he had a lot of name calling, all kind of stuff, but he still had to go around and preach that word, but they didn't show no love back for being mean to him. They've been mean to Paul the whole time God chose him. We are not withholding our affection, from you, but you are withholding yours from us. So Paul confronted the Corinthians for withholding their love they had yet, let their suspicion and misconception and run their relationship with him. See, they're still holding a grudge. They're holding a grudge. And if our God had chosen him, they still don't want to accept him. Instead of accepting Paul, they was becoming mean spirit and wholehearted. See, they don't want to accept Paul. They was being mean hearted in a spirit and hearted. So Paul trying, because he around those people all the time, and he know the tension. So he tried to open up to them and thinking they was going to respond back in love. So as a fair exchange, I speak as to my children, open wide your heart also. So he telling them, won't y'all open your heart to me? Also, I open my heart to y'all. Y'all open your heart to me. Now he telling them to open their heart to him. Paul represent himself to the Corinthians, and he offer evidence that he have not been a false apostle, that he been faithful representing Christ through every kind of suffering through God's power, and so he letting them know, I'm not a false prophet. Everything I'm preaching, he says, it's the power come from God. So he said everything I'm preaching about Christ is true. So he had to let them know everything is true. What I'm talking about Christ, it comes from the power of God. God gave him the Holy Spirit, everything. And he said, I'm not a false prophet. The power comes from God. Now Paul explaining that he working under God. So he not a false prophet. A false apostle. They is not accepting Paul because of the person he was before God chose him. And God transformed him into the man that he is today, to preach about Jesus, and he doing a good job. And some people just will not accept it. We just got to continue on doing our job for God, and that just like when Jesus went back to his hometown, they didn't want to accept him. They didn't even want to hear his word, so he didn't even show no kind of miracle there. He went somewhere else where somebody wants to hear. They got some people, wants to hear that word and be excited, so Paul trying to accept, Paul wants them to accept him, but a lot of time God wants us to preach that word. Whoever don't want to hear it, we cannot force it. We cannot manipulate our love to try to get them to respond back to us. That's what Paul was trying to do. Paul said, I open up to y'all, I give y'all love, and why y'all can't open up to me? And so a lot of time we can't. Jesus just went somewhere else and preached the word that someone else, wants to hear. We can't keep on going backward and forward with someone if they don't want to hear the word. So that's all I have for you today. We talk about immunity claim. I declined immunity claim for Trump filing for immunity claim, because he had to take responsibility, and he can't get everything covered under immunity claim because the document was located at his house. And we also talk about Judge Aileen Cannon. that she should pull down from this case because she's too familiar and showing favoritism, slow walking this case, and it's not getting nowhere. We need this case to move before November of this year. Um, so I had requests for her to pull down so we can get this case moving. Because this case is not moving. She's slow walking this case. And so we talk about Paul hard time. That Paul still, is joyful. He's telling us it's hard. They had to tell me to keep on smiling. Paul went through everything. And he's saying he still had kindness in his heart. He still had love in his heart. He had joyful in his heart. He took some beating. He went to jail a multiple time. And he was close to death many times, but he still survived. He still lived. He still wasn't killed because of the grace of God. God saved Elijah. Till he was time. And God took him up because he know everybody was after Elijah. But he still had an assignment on Elijah until he took him up. And so, we gonna go through something to try to, put to serve God and putting that word out. Jesus went through something. They was like, who is he? And God got Paul out of jail. Told him to go right back into them people and preach to him, and that's what he went to jail for. Because we answer to God. We prophets, disciples, apostles, we under God. So anytime, you're under authority. But if God said go back, he had to go back. But he said he loved it. He said all the trials that he went through, it was opportunity for his faith to grow stronger and stronger. And see, that's what it is. Long as we in a trial and we going through all kind of stuff, it's our faith is getting stronger. And he says our faith is just getting stronger. And he, and you'll think when somebody went to jail multiple times, getting beaten, and went in there just for nothing, because he out there preaching that word, but he didn't become bitter. He didn't become mad. He a very joyful person. Now see, that's what I'm talking about. See, God see things in people that nobody else see. The Israelites didn't want to accept him, but God chose him. And then, they can see what kind of man he is after God transformed him. He preaching that word. He act like he wanted disciples. I mean, he just tearing it down. He went to training everything to learn more and more about Jesus. And he doing a hell-of-fine job. I see the videos. He doing a hell-of-fine job. He preached that word like he a disciple, like he was with Jesus. But he not a disciple. But he went to training. God saw that in him. God saw that I can use this man right here to talk about Jesus, talk about the salvation and everything. And God picked the right one because he been doing a good job going on alone, preaching. And see, God don't have to get permission from his people. That was the Israelite. He didn't have to get permission from them to choose him. Because they keep saying, God, don't you know he did this? Don't you know he did that? God knows. That's why God had Jesus to stop him on that road. So he won't hurt his people. But at the same time, God searched people's heart. Searched his heart. Searched his heart and said, okay, I could use him. I could use him to preach this word. And so God transformed him, equipped him, and everything else. And he been doing a good job. He went all over, set up all his churches and stuff. So he got the right people in the church and preaching that word. And that's something. The people at Corinth don't even like him and accepting him. But I don't know. I don't think that's the people in his church. You know, because he said he represent the church in himself. So that's just people at the Corinthian that they don't want to accept him because they heard about who he was before. You know, and so also if you want to schedule Bible study, you know, I'm gonna leave my information at the bottom, and you can always contact me on my email, and let me know. Spiritual, also spiritual healing. Um, you can book a reading of a particular future, and also missing divine if you know anyone that missing. Always you can leave it on my TikTok account or Instagram, any one of them. You can leave, make sure you leave a picture in their name, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. Y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all in the next video.